Be okay. Right on. All right, Scott, we're live, homie. I thank you so
Cool.
much for joining me. First of all, I really appreciate you being here and taking the time.
Oh yeah, pleasure.
Absolutely. Now you're the owner of RealScape Media, right?
That's right.
Um, you've been doing this for a year, but the business has been in for a year. You've been doing it longer than that, right? Why don't you give
Right.
us your kind of story of how it started, what you do, and everything like that?
Sure. It really started because I was bored. Just it was that simple. I used to work in banks, investigating financial crime, money laundering, that sort of thing. Very buttoned
Wow.
up corporate kind of thing. Yeah, it's
Okay.
not as cool as it sounds. It was a lot of
Yeah.
just looking at spreadsheets. And so I did various things while I was working those jobs to kind of keep my mind occupied, just because I was so bored. And um, back in, let's see, it would have been 2018, I suppose,
Yeah.
or 2019. It's 2019. I was working at a bank and just it wasn't great. I was bored. So I was bored, and I my wife and I were looking for a home at that time, and we went to a few, and the pictures would look good online, and then we'd get there, and the layout kind of sucked. There'd be like a bedroom right by the front. So there'd be a bedroom by the front door, or there would be some other weird feature or whatever. And
Yeah.
it started to irritate me that I'd be wasting all my time going to look at these houses that I knew I was never going to even consider. So
Okay.
the precursor to what is now RealScape Media, I started to create just basic 2D black and white floor plans for realtors to put on their listings so people could see there's a bedroom by the front door or something, and not waste their time going to see that one and not waste their agent's time. Um,
Yeah.
but I couldn't sell that for nothing. I couldn't give it away
Oh, really?
practically.
So
Yeah.
so I think we got cut out a little earlier, but that's how it all started. You were house hunting, and you
Hmm.
just kept going to these houses, and it just kept not being what you thought it was going to be from the pictures.
Right, exactly. And
Okay.
so
And
offering the
then
floor plans to kind of
okay.
show what the layout was.
And nobody would buy that? Like no
Nope.
realtor would buy the 2D. I don't know. I feel like
Nope.
that would be like, all right, well, yeah, just throw it in there or something.
Yeah, I mean, I really practically couldn't give it away. So I kind of pivoted to doing 3D renderings of pre-builts.
Okay.
So I'd get multifamily buildings, blueprints, and I would make a rendering, kind of an artist's conception of what it would look like after it's built. And did that for a little while. People, you know, people liked that, because then they could sell apartments before they even put a shovel in the dirt. But there
Yeah.
wasn't really enough work to keep me busy on that. So I kept pivoting, ended up starting to do kind of real estate photography. Yep. So I started doing the real estate photography for a
Yeah.
commercial
Yeah.
broker, and started getting into the 3D side of things. Discovered I actually really liked doing the 3D side of things, and just
Yeah.
kept going with it. And I've done some pretty cool projects in that.
Yeah. Okay, that's really cool. So you realize that there's kind of some, because there is, like, there's some lacking in the real estate industry where it's really hard. Oh shoot.
And we're back.
I don't know what's happening, man. This Wi-Fi is crazy. I've
Yeah,
never
I
had
don't
this
either.
problem. I don't know what's
I don't
going
know.
on. um okay, but anyway, I mean, it's a real, I've noticed that. Like when I've been looking for houses or something, like I've noticed that it's a real problem. Hmm. Man, I don't know.
There it is. That's okay,
Oh
because I
goodness.
mean, it's a really good metaphor for life and business because you just have to roll with the punches.
You do have to just roll with the punches, man. You do have to just roll with the punches. So I'm hoping that this kicks back up. But I really like that idea that you started to do this. But let me ask you a question. What happened when you wanted to go? So you're in banking, like you were. I mean, investigating financial crime is really just auditing, right?
Sort of, yeah. It's open source intelligence and forensic accounting more than anything.
Yeah. Did you go to school for accounting?
No, nope,
Oh, really?
nope.
How'd you end up in there?
That was an accident too. I was studying. I was at a university in California, actually doing a master's program in non-proliferation and terrorism studies. So basically,
Oh,
nukes and
wow.
terrorists was what I was studying, and the financial crime aspect is a big part of that. And so
Okay.
I just kind of studied that as part of the program and sort of fell into the jobs with the banks.
Wow. That's it. So that's the name of the degree. I don't know a lot of names of degrees, by the way.
No,
There's so many.
yeah, non-proliferation and terrorism studies. That's the name of the degree.
Wow. What school was that for?
The school is now called the Middlebury Institute of International Studies, MIIS. We call
Okay.
it MIS for short.
Okay. Ms. Okay.
Hmm.
Because I'm just like, wow, that would seem so focused. Like you wouldn't go to a state school to go into
Oh no,
something like that. You know what
no,
I
there's
mean?
only like 800 people at the school. Very small, very focused.
Wow. Holy cow. That's crazy. Okay, so that makes sense. So you get into financial banking to kind of, yeah, because a lot of it has to do with money laundering and things like that. You're absolutely
Hmm.
right. Um, and to just kind of get out of the monotony, you start doing all of these things like photography and renderings and things. How did you know how to do that? Was that part of your schooling, or was that just a hobby you picked up?
I taught myself. I saw something that I considered to be a need, and I taught
Yeah.
myself how to fill it.
Okay.
So I
That's really cool.
had no background in photography or anything, but just go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Just go for it. What did you do to kind of teach yourself these skills? Was it YouTube University? Did you have a mentor or a friend that kind of led you there, or were you just, or did you just wake up one day and like, I'm gonna go do 3D renderings and photography?
A lot of it was just trial and error.
Yeah,
Simple as that. I'd
yeah,
practice on my house or other people's houses. I did watch a few videos, but for the most part, it was just simply trial and error.
yeah. And even with photography, you just gotta. Did you do a lot of research to figure out what the camera to buy or anything like that, or did you just start going?
Well, the camera itself, initially, I just used the broker's camera. And then
Oh,
when
okay.
I actually left that brokerage, I just paid him for the camera and took it with me.
Oh,
So,
there you go.
so I didn't really do any research on my DSLR. I did a lot of research on the 3D camera that I use,
Okay.
and actually helped the brokerage to buy it initially before I then bought it from him.
Okay. And what brokerage was this? You were working for a real estate company?
Yeah, just working for a real estate company.
Okay,
So,
that's cool. And you were just working with them to just start doing all of their photography then.
yep, yep. But
Okay.
then there was a
Right
bit of a conflict of personality, so we parted ways and
on. Oh, well, yeah.
and went out on my own.
There you go. Right on. So now you're here. Tell us everything that you do with what does RealScape Media do? Like what are the services you offer?
So RealScape Media, we offer a lot of services, but what we do is we really focus on 3D. So we do real estate photography, we do videography, drone photography and videography, all that stuff. Just to me,
Yeah.
that's just sort of kind of the basics, what you need to do. But we really try to focus on the 3D side of things because that's where the world's going. We have Meta, we have other virtual worlds. I mean,
Yeah.
the world is going more and more virtual, especially with people working from home and so on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, um, so we focus the 3D, and a lot of people tend to think that 3D is just for, let's sell a house, do a 3D tour of a house and sell it.
Mhm.
And of course, we've done that. But we started to focus more on businesses for a while. We've done a lot of things like churches and, retail shops, tire stores, even a bunch of different things, nursing homes. And just kind of found out that it's a really powerful marketing tool, especially when we
Mhm.
combine it with video.
Yeah.
And for example, you can pass by, drive by the same shops on Main Street in your town,
Hmm.
twice a day, every day for years, and you've never stepped foot in any of them. But with a 3D
Right.
tour, maybe you're looking for something specific. You see it's one of those shops you've never stepped foot in, but you have a 3D tour of the shop, so you can walk in there virtually. And now you have that familiarity, that kind of mental map of the place. And so it's a lot smaller of a step to actually go in physically.
Interesting. And what are like so I guess my first question is like what's the pitch for like a tire shop to do a virtual tour of their tire shop?
Tire shops were mostly for remodeling, so I would do those for
Oh, okay, okay.
remodeling. But for other
Okay, okay.
things, like for a nursing home or something, it
Okay.
really actually depends on the industry. So for nursing homes, it's, hey, families of people who might become residents can walk through your nursing home, see everything about it, see how great it is without ever endangering the actual residents, with corona and everything else, without
Mhm.
risking that privacy
Oh,
or
okay, so you can just
the
do like a
illness.
live, yeah, okay.
Um, and so there's that. Um, with retail shops, I can embed videos and things to allow people to actually shop right within the retail shop, the virtual tour, so
Oh,
people
that's
can
cool.
walk through.
Kind of like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, basically get a physical shopping experience virtually.
Like
So
kind of like an AR kind of thing.
um, yeah, basically. So as you walk through, you can look and see, oh, hey, I like that thing. Click on it. It comes up with some of the
Adds it to
info
the
and the
cart.
price and stuff, and add it to the cart right from the virtual tour.
No way. How do
Yeah.
you say that's cool. How do you keep it updated? Or is it just like or is it just like, we have all of these SKUs, or is it just kind of like a the same kind of experience where I'm scrolling through on a website, and if something's out of stock, it says out of stock,
Exactly.
but in this case you're just like walking through and kind of doing like a VR, AR kind of thing.
Hmm. Yeah, that's exactly it. So
Wow, dude.
it the out of stock things all on the back end, of course. I just link it,
Yeah.
deep link it inside the tour.
Wow. That's insane. Holy cow. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool. I was like, okay, so you can kind of take tours and stuff like that. But when you said you can shop with it, that's
Oh,
it,
it gets
man.
better. It gets better.
All right. Well, keep going then, man, because that's really cool
So
so far.
so let's talk more things. So another cool thing that I like to do is I can make games out of the tour itself. So
Okay.
I can make a tour escape room. So it'll
Oh,
drop you into a
wow.
certain spot in the tour. You have to figure out clues, click on certain things, answer questions or whatever before you can move on with the tour and so on. Um,
Wow.
with a similar sort of thing, I can make it training. So if you have a company, you need to train people, I could literally scan, say, the factory, and people have to go through, watch videos about the different stations or answer questions about them or figure out, certain things to get through the training.
Oh, wow.
So it
So like an
fully virtual.
interactive, like
Yeah,
that's
better than
insane. That's
yeah,
crazy.
it's better than sitting and watching a movie, I'll tell you that.
That's true. Yes, it is better, or sitting in real life watching everything, or
Yes.
and just sitting
Or a
there.
PowerPoint or somebody standing there talking
Yeah,
or
that's right.
whatever. Yeah.
That's right, man. So that's bananas. And okay, so when I'm picturing this in my head, you're just on a website and you're just kind of moving through like like the satellite view of Google Maps or something like that,
Yeah, that's
or is it
actually
like
one way I
or is it
describe
like
it.
okay, okay.
Google
So you
Maps
just kind
inside
of
your
move
building.
through. Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Because
You
I'm
know how
like,
Google
man, you
Maps
could
kind
do
of
like
has that. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I was thinking like Oculus like stuff, bro. You know what I mean?
You can do that.
You're on like you can do that. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
you can
pretty
use
dope.
Oculus. I just did, in fact,
Wow.
I just did a scan of a museum and historic building in Idaho, and the curator was using an Oculus to walk through it and test it out.
Wow, that's awesome. Holy cow.
So,
That's
yeah,
crazy. Okay. So how did this all evolve? Like you start with a real estate brokerage. You realize like, you can't sell 2D prints, realtors don't want them. And then you move to like full 3D. I mean, what was that process like? Was it just you just kept learning and you kept figuring it out and just stumble upon things or what?
basically, it's well, if they don't want 2D, then what do they want? Well, maybe they'll want 3D.
Yeah.
Well, realtors didn't want it because there's cameras that can scan it, but architects and developers wanted it because then they could show their buildings before built. But there's a lot of architects actually provide that service, so there wasn't a lot of space for me to work there because they
Okay.
would just provide that service with their BIM modeling and things. So then it's okay, what else can I do in this space?
Yeah.
And I don't know, you just keep your ears open for opportunities for what people are saying.
Yeah.
Well, what about, I have this
Yeah.
problem, I have that problem. How can, and then you think, well, how can I solve it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's intense. And the equipment, so you go in there and scan it. Man, I bet that I'm just thinking like that equipment's not cheap.
It's not insanely expensive.
Okay.
The equipment I use
I mean,
right now is
yeah.
right about $6,000 total.
Okay. Okay.
So
I'm
not
because that
horrible.
just blows my mind. But now you mentioned earlier in the conversation, because this is one thing that I've had people on the podcast in all kinds of NFT space and blockchain space,
Hmm.
crypto. One of the people I've had on is Harish Latlakar, who is the founder and or co-founder and CEO of a company called Superworld, and they're literally like a virtual real estate company, like virtual,
Hmm.
like metaverse, like legit metaverse.
Hmm.
So what do you think the application is for you, and are you exploring that as like an avenue to take in all of your to like explore and expound into?
It's definitely on my radar. I know there's
Yeah.
several companies that do that, Verbella and others who kind of have the virtual real estate space.
Yeah.
As far as what I'm doing, I don't have the technical experience in the company right now to do that. However,
Mm,
that's where things are going to go. The world,
yeah.
eventually, there's going to be a virtual twin of just about everything in the world. And
Oh yeah.
those
Yeah.
are going to be made compatible with these fake virtual worlds. Like, I don't want to use the word fake because I mean they're real virtual worlds. These contrived, I guess, contrived virtual worlds that aren't
Yeah.
physical.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I man, there's a lot of kind of debate around that. But you I mean, I believe it. I believe that's where it's going. But
mhm.
what made you what kind of change what was the light bulb moment? What made it click for you that metaverse, that this kind of space? Because the problem with the world right now in the NFT space is everybody's seeing like the NFTs are awesome. Like I love that space, but it's getting polluted like every industry does, with charlatans and people who are just trying to make a quick buck and bounce. Like that's not what the real NFT space is. But
No.
um it's funny because like I think that it's definitely part of the future. How do you think this all plays into marketing businesses, or not marketing businesses, but like businesses in general having to like use NFTs and maybe the metaverse, and maybe your expertise, right? How are they going to like put their business on the metaverse? Because that's what you were talking about earlier in a sense, right? When people take a
Event-
virtual tour of it, right?
Eventually, yes. I believe that eventually, um, all these businesses, any kind of brick and mortar or anything you can make brick and mortar, is going to be brick and mortar in a virtual world. How that's all going to shake out, I'm not sure. Whether it's going to be kind of one company controlling or whether it's going to be multiple companies kind of feeding in the same ecosystem, I'm not sure. It's really too early to tell. They're all kind of competing
Yeah.
for the same very nascent industry.
Yeah.
As far as physical world things, um, I mean, eventually those are going to be incorporated into these virtual worlds, um,
Yeah.
by whatever means. And like I said, I'm yeah. I mean, you look at like Google. I mean, they've already made kind of a partial virtual world. You know, it's all the exteriors.
Yeah.
The interiors are going to take a lot more time. You know, and they change a lot. You know, and things like that. But we already have had a virtual world a long time for Google Earth.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, this isn't new. It's just new how excited people are getting about it, and new how much effort is being put into it. Um,
That's true. You're right though.
yep.
Google was doing a lot of crazy stuff. I remember, do you remember when Google blew up for they had their AI phone, like answering technology?
Hmm.
So
I
like,
remember
do
that.
you remember that video where
Yeah.
they were like calling into the salon and it sounded like a real person, and they scheduled a hair appointment right then, and even the AI, what blew me away was the AI was like, yeah, let me check that real quick, hold on, and then you know how like we on the phone were like do to do, or like like she was making these noises like a human would make, and I was
Yep.
like, that is so freaky, dude. I was like, that's crazy, man. It was
AI is
bananas.
still a nascent industry too. It's
Yeah.
we have a long way to go for both of these,
Yeah.
AI and 3D.
AI, 3D, blockchain, all that
Oh yeah,
stuff, man. Like Meta, metaverse. I don't know what
we're
Facebook's.
we're
I don't know what
using
Facebook.
stone tools right now
Yeah.
for all of
Yeah.
those. We really only have stone tools, and that's the best kind of imagery because it's just
Yeah.
so early.
Right. And that's why everybody, I have a lot of people in the who are just very like bearish on the NFT space, the blockchain space, or like crypto, right? Because here's what bugs me about this, and I'm going to riff a little bit on this for a second.
Sure.
Like what really what really like gets me going is like the fact that people are bailing on crypto because, of course, like some people are trying to turn crypto into like this forex trading or like this day
Mm-hmm.
trading, and I'm like, that's not, guys, you're missing, like, this is, blockchain is not about day trading, or like crypto trading, and like all of this stuff. Like NFTs aren't about making a JPEG and selling it for millions of dollars. Like this, it's more inclusive than that. It's more creative than that. And and it's more like versatile than that. Like we just, unfortunately, we get a lot of these people who see an opening and they just start abusing it. But really, like NFTs and that kind of technology, like in my mind, it's like smart contracts. If people actually knew what an NFT was and they understood like smart contracts, I think more people would be bullish on it. And I think, to your point, if we understood like, I think COVID does a really good example of this, because when you're telling people like you can walk into the store virtually and not be at risk for dying on the way there or contracting
Yep.
COVID-19 or whatever happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no more, for the most part, right? There's no more in that scenario. There's very little theft because there's nothing to take. Like,
You can't. You can't.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like,
Yep.
why wouldn't you embrace that? I think that's awesome, man. I think it's cool. And by the way, I think people get nervous about this because they're like, we're losing this human connection. And I think if we do it right, if we play this right, it opens up more time for human connection, because you can shop. You know what I mean? You can run your whole store in this 3D metaverse from Aruba and meet
Yeah.
whoever you want. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Or like you can
Exactly.
shop where you can support. How, what's interesting will be how it changes this whole support local, which, by the way, I love. Right? Like I love
Mm-hmm.
supporting local, but it'll change this kind of support local perspective, because now we're in the metaverse. dog, and we don't have to go anywhere. You know what I mean? I think it
What
brings
what
people.
will be local? What's
Yeah,
local even
yeah,
going to be in 20
right.
years?
Right. Yeah, that's such a great point. Because I mean, essentially what you're dealing with is like you're really bringing people closer together. And I think if we do it right, I think if we teach like early education about this is supposed to help us free up time so that we can live more creatively because that's what we're doing. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
The less time we have to spend on menial tasks,
Yeah.
driving 20 minutes to the store, walking through the store, driving 20 minutes back, you know,
Yeah.
I hate driving, honestly. Like that's one of the things I can't stand how much time I have to spend in the car.
Yeah.
I try to
Yeah.
listen to podcasts or put on masterclass or whatever, but I spend a ton of time in the car. And I that's one of the
Right.
great things
Right, dude.
about working for myself is now I don't have a 9 to 5 commute. Um,
Yeah. Right.
but
I like
we
that.
start taking this time that we don't have to do these menial tasks, and I mean, good heavens, we shop online and our orders can be filled by robots.
Yeah.
I mean, the technology is
Yeah.
there. I mean, I've seen it demonstrated multiple times to where robots can pack your orders and everything else. So you don't even have to have humans do it, and humans can focus on what we are good at, which is
Yeah.
creating. Robots
Yeah.
don't create.
Right.
Robots
Right.
don't see the future and then make it. Robots perform tasks, but
Yeah.
humans create.
Right. 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 Yeah. So I think I'm in between. Do you remember that video with it was Elon Musk and Jack Ma from Alibaba, and they were
Hmm.
they were at like an AI conference, and Jack was like, "Oh, it's never gonna happen," and Elon was like, "You're an idiot." I think I'm in between
Basically,
because it will. Yeah, I was like, it will happen, but I think if we do it right, it will allow us to like do what we're good at. Because like I remember, like I went to school for accounting, and we had whole classes on AI and accounting, whatever, right, machine learning and all this stuff.
hmm
And what's nice is like, yes, you can hire a computer to do your books for the company, right? But the problem is and maybe this changes, right? But for the most part, like right now, that AI or machine learning can't tell you what the numbers mean. It just gives you data,
no,
right? It doesn't
no, they
really tell
process
you
data.
like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, maybe at some point it's like, hey, you have because there is out, technology out there that's like ranks it, right? It gives you risks like based on your numbers and what we know. This is what's going to happen. Um, but for
Mhm.
now, you know, we're just going it, and robots can't start businesses, and what's funny is like people are freaking out. But I was talking to my little brother about this the other day. um like just be open with what you want to do, because a job that you might take in 20 years doesn't even exist right now, or 10 or 5. You know what I mean? Like those jobs don't even exist yet.
That's exactly it. And you have to be able to pivot. That's been like my
Yeah,
story from the very beginning is just pivot, 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 pivot until you find the place where you can land
yeah,
and make something.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, no, I mean, truly, I couldn't agree more. So, for you right now, you're doing all this stuff, but like I'm curious, what are some of like your visions for the company, your goals?
I'm glad you asked. I have a big goal we're working on right now. Um, I was reading an article about a month and a half ago, I guess, and it had some pretty scary statistics in it for me. And
Okay.
one of them was that nearly 80% of all museums, art galleries, and similar institutions were forced to close at some point during the pandemic.
Yeah, yeah.
And as many as 20% may never reopen. That
Whoa.
was bad. Yeah.
Yeah, why
The,
would
the
that
estimates
happen? That
range from
doesn't
like
make any sense.
12 to 20 something percent may never reopen, because they lost
Crazy.
patronage, so they didn't have the money to stay open. And then it takes money to kind of get open again and get the patronage back and all this stuff. And to me, that
Yeah.
that is terrifically bad, because those institutions, we depend on those institutions, um, to preserve
Yeah.
culture and history and all that stuff, and
Yeah.
we might lose them. So
Yeah.
one of the
Yeah.
projects we're working on right now is to help preserve. So
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 say that
instead
again.
of
So wait, hold on, time out. I lost you there for a second. So your one of your goals is to help preserve.
preserve the museums and art galleries and
Okay.
similar institutions. Um,
Okay.
and we want to do that, using 3D tours. Um, and our thought is this: go and make 3D tours of these institutions, embed videos and text and images and all these things to make it a rich experience,
Yeah.
and then sell it, make a membership out of it, pay 20, 30, $50 a year or something like that to be
Yeah.
able to visit 50 museums. That's a
Oh,
really
that's
good deal,
dope. That's dope.
and so that's
Yeah.
what we're trying to build right now.
Oh man, that's cool. Cause you wow, yeah, you could totally do that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you could get 10,000,
Wow.
100,000, million plus people all paying a membership to see all these museums, and most of those people would never go to most of those museums in person, and so then at the end
Yeah.
of the year, we
And
can
it's
kind of
yeah.
split the money.
Well, and what would be cool about that? Well, yeah, you could make like a oh, bro, you could make like a museum metaverse where you have like the Mall of America, but like in the virtual world with all the museums kind of lined up in a row. Is that what
Eventually,
you were
yes.
thinking? Is
Exactly.
that what
Eventually, yes.
that's
That is
dope,
exactly the
dude.
idea. So once we
Wow.
start
Okay.
it, we have, 100,000 people or something, all paying, then all that,
Hmm.
that's money that these museums don't have to work for, and
Yeah.
then they get it
Yeah.
every
And I
year to
would, yeah.
preserve the building and everything. And then over time, as we get more and more and we have a bigger user base, the idea is, yeah, to work with some of these companies that already have the expertise in building these
Yeah.
virtual worlds to, I don't know exactly how it would work, convert these museums or embed them somehow in the virtual worlds, so people could just walk in, go into this world, and there's the Smithsonian Air and Space, there's the National, you know
Yeah.
the Natural History Museum, and there's one in Idaho, there's one in California, there's one in, and they just walk
Some of the
down
ones like in
the street.
across the world too.
Yeah, and hopefully, we can eventually get some of the ones internationally and just make this a big thing so that you could visit anything you wanted, anytime, anywhere.
That's cool. That's pretty awesome, actually. You could put that in the Oculus or the VR headset, dude.
Yep.
That would be dope.
Yep, and that's
I
the
think that'd
idea.
be awesome. What the heck? That'd be way cool.
Yeah, and
Seeing
and
stuff. Yeah.
and we'll make it even better than the physical tours. Physical tours, you walk through, you can read about things on plaques, but with a 3D tour, I can embed videos. So as you're walking through
Yeah.
the Smithsonian Air and Space, I love Air and Space. That's one of my favorite museums.
All
Smithsonian
right.
Air and Space, and you see the Minuteman missile, click on it, and up comes this video of, like, this is how we made this, this is what it does, and all this stuff,
Yeah.
and it just makes it so much richer than even being there in person.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do.
Wow, man, that's crazy. Well, that's
Yep.
really cool. I really like that. I think you got something really special going on there, bro. I think
Thank
that's
you.
awesome. Well, that's
Thank
cool,
you.
dude. Um, so I'll give you some time back in your night, but I really like what you're doing. Um, will you let us know like how everybody can find you and maybe where they can see some of your work currently?
Sure. So I have several websites we've been working on. RealScape Media, just
Okay.
RealScape media.com is sort of our main one where we display a lot of our work.
Okay.
RealScape Luxury is where I show off some of the luxury homes we've done. And
Oh,
then
nice.
it's under
That's cool.
construction right now, but RealScape Tours is where we're going to be hosting our museums. So probably
Oh,
early
that's
next
cool.
month, if you want to get in on the pre-sale for it. We're not going to charge anybody until we have a certain number of museums, to make it worth your while. So if you want to get in at a, low price while we build this out, it would help us, because the more people we have sign up, the more power I have to go to these places and say, hey, look, I have 1,000, I have 10,000 people who want this,
Yeah,
get in on this, and then we can get more and kind of play it back and forth. So those three:
that's
RealScape
insane.
Media, RealScape Luxury, RealScape Tours.
Wow, man. Well, hey, that's awesome, brother. Thank you so much for jumping on here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.